like in your 30s and you're still a virgin. Were you like traumatized as a child? Like, what's wrong with you? What is so wrong with you that no guy would want to sleep with you?
I hear y'all. I don't like it, but I hear y'all. This is gonna be an interesting video. Yes, it is. And a very personal one. So, disclaimer, personal information alert. So, yes, we are going to be talking about why I am still a virgin. And before I jump into some of my thoughts that I really value, want to address the elephant in the room. Some of y'all might be thinking some of the following.
Of course you're still a virgin, because you dress the way that you do. What guy would want to date somebody with hair like that? Of course you're still a virgin, because you've got a lisp. My gosh, doesn't she need to, like, lose 10 pounds? With her emotional baggage and her daddy issues, like, no wonder she's still single. Ooh, you're, like, in your 30s and you're still a virgin? Were you, like, traumatized as a child? Like, what's wrong with you? What is so wrong with you that no guy would want to sleep with you?
Even with all of those reasons y'all might supply, I don't believe those. That's not the real reason why I'm still a virgin. Throw shade all you want. I don't care. I know me, and I know the reasons why. So let's get into it, shall we? I'm excited. So yeah, let's just address it. I am a 33-year-old woman, and I'm still a virgin. Ta-da!
Why do you say like it's a bad thing?
And I've been thinking about this for several months. And I've tried like filming this video a couple of times already, and it's been kind of difficult to get out what I wanted to get out. But if I were to like hone in on a central message of why I'm making this video and why I am still a virgin, this would be it. I am still a virgin because I don't want to settle for a less intimate relationship.
I am just not interested in doing it until I find the right person. You see how picky I am about my shoes, and they only go on my feet.
God is actually the one who's taught me to aim for the highest caliber of closeness in a romantic relationship. God. And until I find the right person to have that kind of relationship with, one where I like want to commit the rest of my life to them, then I'm not going to settle for less than that. I am too valuable and too precious, and good sex is like way too important to trivialize. So I'm just not going to do it. So yeah, that's the gist of it. I want the good kind, the good stuff. And I think that comes from a very good and healthy relationship. And I just haven't found the right person to cultivate that kind of relationship with yet. And like to me, it's totally worth waiting for. Forgive the crassness of this analogy. I pre-apologize, but it is like the best way that I know how to convey why and help explain why I am holding off. Several years ago, I was in South Africa, and there was like this one moment where this really, really cute little African boy was going to get some ice cream. He was so excited. He had 2 rand, which I think is like maybe 25 cents in the US, maybe even less. And he got an ice cream bar. I think it was like coconut flavored, and was like giddy and excited and walked away home. It was like so adorable to watch his enthusiasm over something so simple as being able to go get ice cream. So I was really curious of like, okay, maybe this ice cream is really delicious because he is so excited about it. So I went and I bought that same coconut bar that he had, and I took a bite into it, and it was like worse than skim milk.
Which is water that's lying about being milk.
It was, I don't know what cream there was in there. There was like a hint of cream, a hint of flavor. For the most part, it was like really watered down. And I wouldn't consider that ice cream. I wouldn't even consider it a slushie. It was just really, really cheap tasting. Very cheap. I think about that, and I think about how excited that little boy got over a 2 rand ice cream. And it clicked for me. Oh, he doesn't know any better. This is what is available to him. This is his treat. So of course he's excited about it. And when I came home to the United States, I've become something of an ice cream connoisseur. I love discovering the richness and depth of different types of ice creams and gelatos. I've had like gelato in Italy, basil gelato, by the way, the most delicious thing ever. So I know a little something of like the creams, the iced and whipped variety. And I gotta say, like, some of my favorite among the Ben and Jerry's and the Far, I think that's what it's called, like FARR brands, and oh my gosh, what's it called? It starts with an M. Mayfield, also very good. New Zealand. Maybe it doesn't start with an M.
2 very boring minutes later.
We'll go with Ben and Jerry's. Because Ben and Jerry's is pretty freaking delicious. Ooh, Baskin Robbins. Bluebell! Bluebell! Ah! It's Bluebell! Okay, so, coming back here. I thought to myself, clearly this little boy has never had a Bluebell ice cream. Because if he had, he would spit out immediately that 2 rand coconut bar that he had. Because Bluebell is so full of cream and flavor. The moment it hits your tongue, it like is smooth and melts into your entire body, and your soul is delighted. So this little boy clearly has never experienced something as delicious as a Bluebell. So as crass as it is to create an analogy that like sex is like ice cream, that's what I'm about to do. And some of you guys out there might be like, that's why she's still a virgin. I get it. Call me naive if you want to, but I also think that being a virgin for as long as I have been gives me a unique ability to look at the situation more objectively, because I have no coloration of like trauma or with it being associated with a specific person, like a very specific relationship and romantic partner. I can look at it in terms of generic sex and love and commitment, you know? It's all generic to me. So I think that adds a unique perspective that some of y'all out there might not know. Brands of ice cream and sex can be correlated, because a lot of people out there might be settling for a lower caliber of sex instead of holding off for the Bluebells of the world. At which I would say that Bluebell ice cream, the sex equivalent, is a very good and close and intimate relationship. One where there's emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, spiritual intimacy, and mental intimacy as well. All of it has to be prime. And then also it has to have commitment. One where you know that because 1 or 2 sexual encounters don't go well, that they're not just going to cast you off and seek another partner. Like, it has to have the security around it of knowing that this has the possibility of permanence. And then you are free to be utterly yourself in a way that you can't be with anyone else. Literally anyone else. Like, this is the one person that gets you, that is willing to wake up beside you the next morning and face the day with you, not just take you to bed. Too often, in my opinion, I think people have been settling for a lower caliber of sex because they don't think it's possible to have a entirely bonded relationship with someone that sex can be a part of. So, this is the part of the video where I admit that in my own history of my own life, there have been several reasons why I have decided to stay a virgin, and many of them were not healthy. Not like I am now, with realizing that like sex is just such a beautiful thing that I want to have it with the right person at the right time in the right kind of relationship. Before, when I was younger, at different stages of my life, we'll say, I've had other reasons for wanting to stay a virgin. It might have just been fear of God. Put the fear of God in you. Fear of men. Fear of intimacy and closeness in a relationship, because I was really afraid of betrayal, especially deep betrayal. Fear of being undesirable, that like I wouldn't be enough anyway, so why pursue sex if somebody's not even going to want me back? The most recently, before this mind shift that I've had, was that I was afraid that I was too broken to have the kind of intimate relationship that I wanted. I thought I was incapable of being close enough to another human being to be able to... I didn't mean to do that. That was totally on accident. That I was incapable of being close enough to another human being for sex to be amazing. I thought I was the weak link. You are the weakest link. Goodbye. And here's where I say, nobody else, nobody in church, none of my friends, none of my family members, no TV show that I watched, and no books that I read gave me those fears. That was 100% Dara created, original content. I have no one to blame for feeling that fear but myself. and for my misunderstandings, which misunderstanding something isn't a bad thing. It's not a big deal. It's a big deal when you refuse to ask for help, to ask for correction, or seek for better understanding. That was my mistake. So, having the fear that God would be mad at me for being a sexual being, that was on me for not talking to God about it, for not reading his scriptures and his words that clearly don't mean that. He created the male and the female body, and after that creation is when he says, and God saw it that it was very good. Very good. Not just good, very good, which means our sex drive is very good. So, dummy. So I have no one to blame for the fact that I lived my life as a self-imposed, sexually repressed individual for a good portion of my life. Now, has that worked out to my benefit? I think so, because now I'm in a very healthy place with my relationship with God, with my relationship with myself, with my understanding of sex, with what I'm looking for. Like, I feel amazing. And I'm grateful that I didn't have to go through what some other people have had to go through, where they have sexual trauma or emotional scars because as they were figuring things out, they were engaging in sex. So I was spared a lot of heartbreak, I think, because of the restraints on myself. And I'm grateful for that. Like, hands down, very, very grateful for that. And I'm grateful even more so that my erroneous thoughts have been corrected. That who of all people has been teaching me to change my perspective is God. God is the one who is not inviting any of us to be repressed or oppressed. Instead, he's inviting us to a higher caliber of life, a greater amount of joy, a deeper connection with other people and with him, and a soul-quenching intimacy that is just absolutely beautiful and fulfilling like nothing else can be. So he is the one who for several years now has been guiding me to different perspective shifts and realizing like just how good sex is, like what makes it good, what makes it bad, what kind of relationship has the best kind of sex in it. And so there are scriptures are amazing. I might do a separate video just on the scriptures about sex life. But the books that have been outside of scripture that have been really helpful for me are Unwanted by Jay Stringer and How to Avoid Falling in Love with a Jerk. I don't remember who wrote it. Who wrote it? I have it with me right now, so here we go. John Van Epp. That's right, John Van Epp. Which doesn't deal just exclusively with sex. He talks about relationships in general, but his whole 13th chapter is all about sex life. Yay! Along with, it's not just about reading books. Like, I've talked to a lot of my friends who have gotten married, who have gotten divorced, who haven't ever been married but are sexually active, and watched a lot of, like, YouTube videos. So I've had a lot of exposure to sex in general. Like, here's a funny exposure. It's kind of embarrassing to admit. I don't know if it'll make the cut in the video. But so as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I did serve a mission for 18 months as a sister missionary in Arizona. And there was one couple who, bless them, they had us over for dinner and to share with them a lesson about Jesus. And on the wall of their kitchen was a whole poster full of sex poses. And I was so confused. I have glasses. I'm nearsighted. So I didn't see it very clearly. I got kind of close and I squinted and I was like, oh, and I can't imagine what they were thinking of, like, why is this missionary looking so closely at different sex poses? Anywho, so that gave me a pretty good indication of like, oh, don't look. Sorry, my apologies. That gave me an idea of like, oh, okay, so there is such a thing as different sex poses. And people can get creative in their relationships, hence the Kama Sutra. So, there you go. Anyway, I figured I would allow for John Van Epp to explain what I could not explain, because he says it better than I do. I also think that too often people have equated sexual need with only biological needs. And I don't think sex can be relegated to just a biological need. It is more than that. No matter how much women, especially post the sexual revolution, have been trying to divorce themselves, divorce the sexual act from relationship, the more we see mental health issues and trauma coming about, and how we can never really agree on what is consent. I don't think that you really can, for a female, have good sex divorced from a good relationship. I think that's one of the ways that we balance out the male sex drive. The male sex drive wants sex so often, the female wants emotional connection, and where the two unite, it becomes something beautiful for both of them. So too often, I think we relegate a sexual need with the biochemical and pheromonal and stimulatory things that come with your biological cues in having sex. I don't think it's just that. It can't be just that. I think the need is a deeply spiritual one, because sex changes the environment of the relationship once you have it. You can't undo it. You can't go back and forget the fact that you've slept with that person. The entire relationship changes as a result of having the conjugal embrace. Here's what John talks about. It's in the chapter called Sex Changes the Relationship. Some researchers have studied the changes, if any, that occur with the first act of intercourse in a relationship with a partner. What they found was that one act of sex ignited a chain reaction of several other relationship activities. Because of this domino effect, they referred to the first sexual encounter in a relationship as the passion turning point. For instance, when couples were interviewed and asked about major turning points in the relationship, the first sexual act together was the most frequently remembered. It was also among the most commonly commemorated by couples in their yearly schedule. For some of you, the following may sound very familiar. The singles in this national study talked about additional changes that accompanied the time of their first sexual act in their relationships. They described several relationship activities that launched after they had sex for the first time together, significantly increasing mixed feelings and thoughts about their relationship. One of the activities was a stronger desire to open up and feel closer. At the same time, this was countered by an equally strong feeling of being more vulnerable to getting hurt by the partner and an apprehension about letting down your guard. This feeling of vulnerability was even more heightened when the first sex act occurred before certain shows of love and desire had been expressed. It made the couples wonder what was expected of them now in their relationship. This uneasiness and vulnerability, which was caused from the increased inclination to share more of oneself with a partner while feeling unsure of whether the partner can be trusted, fits with what we have seen in, he's got a diagram called the RAM. The RAM's portrayal of emotional unsafe relationships. Thank you! Thank you! He says it so well, doesn't he? Sex intensifies your relationship, which intensifies the good and the bad. The insecurity that can come out when you're not sure where you stand with the other person, but yet you've given so much to the other person. If there's not enough trust in that relationship, you're going to feel super unsteady. And I know for girls, that's partially why we feel so crazy, is because we're like, I don't know where I stand with this guy, and yet I've given so much of my heart to him, and I feel so much more connected to him, and I have no idea if he feels the same way about me. To continue, when you become sexually involved without the other bonding dynamics being equally involved in your relationship, then you create vulnerabilities for yourself. Another reason this happens is because your sexual involvement tugs on your trust and reliance so that you want more in your relationship than what was promised. The respondents apparently felt more vulnerable to being hurt and wanted to protect themselves by keeping a measure of independence. It was as though they felt pulled towards dependency, but not fully sure they were ready for it. This created additional tension in the relationship, leaving the partners unsure of what each expected of the other. I don't know about you guys. That does not sound good. I don't want that insecurity. I don't want that instability. I don't want to wonder the next morning where I stand with a guy if I wake up in bed next to him. No, thank you. No, thank you. Not interested. Not happening. If I'm going to give you all of me physically, you better be prepared to handle all of me emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. That's all I'm saying. You better be ready to build a life with me, because that is a big deal. I am a big deal. Kind of a big deal. So I think when we relegate sex to just a biological need, we are doing ourselves a massive disservice. Because sex itself is the unification of two independent individuals voluntarily willing to be vulnerable with each other. So vulnerable that is an action where it's just the two of them, where time stops, where there is a physical union that cannot happen in any other relationship. And it should not happen in any other relationship. Too often, people try to substitute other things, other behaviors, and think that that's satisfying their need for their sex drive. Like, porn will never be a substitute for sex. Neither will prostitution, nor masturbation, nor casual sex or commitmentless sex. None of those things are actually satisfying the sexual need because the need is not just a biological one. It is a social one, it is a spiritual one as well. I mean, how else can you explain the fact that there is a greater amount of erectile dysfunction among men who watch porn? Like, if it was satisfying a need, it wouldn't damage you like that. The loneliness that is curated in an individual when they masturbate, because they think that they cannot have any satisfaction with another person. Nobody wants them, so they have to take care of it themselves. How freaking lonely is that? Or anytime you have a sexual encounter with someone without any kind of commitment to it, you feel so cheap. At least, of course, once again, this is somebody who has not experienced it, but who has listened to many close personal friends describe that feeling of feeling cheap, like they devalued themselves, like they didn't want to go through with it, like they regretted it. How else can you explain why they feel that way when they engaged in sex without any kind of relationship commitment or without the health of a good relationship? So yes, to me, the sex drive and the sexual need is a very good thing. It is a God-given thing. The intent of sex is to build a bond between two people that is nigh unto unbreakable, that is supposed to weld you two together permanently, because now this other person belongs to you, belongs with you. You are now a united life that you co-create together. So it makes me sad to see that there are people out there who are proponents for casual sex, because that means that they don't think they deserve better, or that the other person they're engaging in it with deserves better, deserves something more safe, more permanent, more intimate than that. And I am fully convinced that any attempt to try and satiate the sexual need that is outside of a committed, healthy relationship, it will be dissatisfying. Masturbation, porn, prostitution, casual sex cannot satisfy that need. It can pretend to, just like a 2-rand ice cream can, but it will never satisfy the need. That is something only accomplished in a fully committed relationship. That is a healthy one. Because there are such things as fully committed relationships that are unhealthy. I'm not talking about those. I'm not talking about people who are in abusive relationships, especially. That does not qualify as a healthy relationship. And that does not qualify as the best sex you can have. I loved watching this on Cinema Therapy, and I have tried to go back and refine this video because the therapist on that show is so good about breaking down healthy and unhealthy relationships and the different elements that are in them. And I love how he commented off the cuff. He's like, because the relationship itself is foreplay for the sex life. And I was like, oh my gosh, it finally was able to describe what I've been feeling this whole time. That like, if somebody is putting up a pretense with me on a date, like, it used to really bother me when a guy would open a door for me, and I could just kind of get the sense that, like, you're only doing this because you're trying to impress me. If we were actually dating, you wouldn't do that. So, like, why do that now? Anytime that somebody puts up even a small pretense, I'm like, okay, how much are you going to be hiding if we were to get closer? Or somebody who is unresponsive to your needs, who doesn't, like, watch and pay attention to your moods, so that even when you say, yeah, I'm fine, that they don't pick up on the social cue of, like, maybe this person's not fine. Maybe I should ask a little bit more. Or if they see that you're struggling with something heavy or physically have a lot to do, like a lot of chores to take care of, and they don't offer to help, like if they're not willing to be invested in you in those small ways, then are they going to pick up on your cues in bed? Are you going to feel comfortable explaining to them what you'd prefer, what you'd like to try, what you'd like to experiment with if you can't communicate with them outside of the bedroom. So I want those things. I want the free and open communication with my partner. I want the security of knowing that they're not going anywhere, even if this time or this couple of times has not been satisfying or fulfilling for them. Even when I do something goofy or dorky, even when I am insecure about something, that they can try and provide that security for me and give me the assurance that they're not going anywhere, that that's not going to scare them off, that I am more desirable than whatever I consider to be undesirable about me. Like it overcompensates. Who I am is desirable enough. And I want to feel that way about somebody else too. I don't want to just like hold someone's hand or hug them or kiss them or sleep with them because I'm craving those things personally. I want it to be about them. I'm interested in touching this man because this man makes me feel special, because this man is special to me, unlike anybody else I've ever met. I'm just not interested in settling for something less than that. I don't want to pretend. I want to be authentic and honest in a relationship in all parts of it. And so it makes me sad when people feel like they have to settle for less. And here's a really good example, I think, from Ted Lasso. Freaking love that show. Ted, just a beautiful human being. Love that show. And I love Rachel. I would like to apologize. I can never get Rebecca's name right. Every time I talk about this show, I always call her Rachel, and it's super embarrassing. And I do the same thing with Amber and Amanda. I just like switch them. It's like name dyslexia. I do love her character, even if I can't say her name. She's got it going on. She is gorgeous, and she's powerful, and she's feminine, and she gives great advice, and she's hilarious. Like, total package. So in the episode where they're in Amsterdam, and she meets she doesn't know he's a pilot, but the gentleman who rescues her out of the river, and they're spending that entire evening together. She's on the bus the next morning talking to Ted and telling that she had an incredible evening with this guy that she doesn't even know his name. And she said,
"Look, what we shared, it transcended sex."
And I saw that, and that just gutted me. Oh, like, why on earth would you think that sex is less than that? Gosh, like, that is what a good relationship is supposed to be like. So can you imagine having sex after that? How incredible it would be? That's what I'm talking about. Like, why are we as a culture settling and relegating sex as something subpar to that? Like, that evening that they had was so bonding. They were totally like on each other's wavelengths. They were bantering back and forth. They felt at home and comfortable with each other. That is the kind of thing that leads to an excellent partnership, to an excellent sex life, to great satisfaction and sexual needs being met. Now, she doesn't know that because she spent so much time with all the wrong men, trying to curb her sexual appetite without realizing that she is settling for a 2-rand ice cream. You know what I'm saying? Gah! So maddening to see a beautiful woman settle for less, and to think that to aim for something better is impossible, is being too demanding and too picky. Gah! Nuts. Okay, so I mentioned this book, Unwanted by Jay Stringer. Amazing. So dang good, even for a virgin. Amazing. And anybody on the spectrum of what sexual experience you've had. Absolutely incredible. So this, and I love what he brings up. He is able to talk about it in terms that also are very godly, which is amazing. I mean, not all of y'all probably believe in God that are watching this. That's okay. You don't have to. If it's every time it says the word God, you can insert something else. But I think this is just he's able to describe what it is that I view sex to be now so much better than I could. So here we go. All right. Have you ever wondered why God made us so sexual? Especially when it often seems to plague us with shame. I've wondered the same thing. What I am struck by is the reality that sex was God's idea. And I have to believe that because he invented it, he knows the power it will render in our lives. Sex is one of the most important means through which we will discover the heart of God. Sounds interesting, I know. Let's keep reading. Rather than fearing we're too sexual, we should be more concerned that we have not become sexual enough. When I spend time with people experiencing lifelong struggles with unwanted sexual behavior, especially pornography, I'm always struck by how little they enjoy sex. God gave us the most remarkable minds and bodies, specifically designed to experience the fullness of fantasy and pleasure. If we move out from our hovels of sexual shame and meaningless hookups, there is so much more awaiting us as children of God. Central to Christian theology is that men and women are sexual beings who are made in the image of God. God says, God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Bearing God's image is the essential feature of our identity. No affair, no addiction, and no sexual shame can destroy it. The concept of an image bearer has been used throughout various empires around the world. Typically, leaders or dictators would construct statues or manufacture coins that bore their images to remind their people about whom they served. Israel's God, however, is not satisfied with stone statues and manufactured coins. He has something much more beautiful in mind. God creates men and women to reveal his glory, to show the whole world what he is all about. We see the image of God in one another when a friend pursues us in a season of heartache, when we spend time at a barbecue with friends during an endless summer night, and when we laugh heartily at a good joke. But we see our image-bearing potential most vividly, yet mysteriously, in the stunning experience of sex. Incredible, right? Absolutely incredible.
And what I love about that, it is to elevate humankind.
You know what? I was going to try and expound on that. I just can't. I can't. One of my plans is to do a book review of this book, because I think there is so much in there. It sounds intense. It sounds jarring. And then when you think about it, you're like, hot dog, that man is onto something. Because so much of the way we talk and think about sex in Christianity, in religion, and in the past has been so filled with shame, and yet scripturally it hasn't. And it's so interesting to realize, like, that was never God's intent. He was never trying to tell us, you know what, only have sex in marriage because you should be ashamed of yourselves. That was never what it was about. It was always because it was an incredibly sacred, bonding, beautiful thing that it has to be shared with two people who are ready to hear it. I mean, think about how violating it can feel sometimes when you're like sharing something that you're really passionate about with somebody else and they're not listening to you, or they don't get it. They don't think it's valuable. And you're like, oh, how deflating. I was so enthusiastic about this. This matters so much to me, and you don't care, and yet you say that you care about me. And that's just with sharing a thought or a passion. I can't imagine how that would feel when you're in a sexual relationship with somebody and they don't value you, that you're just the next notch in their belt. Woof. I am not a fan of that. Not a fan of it at all. People using each other for sexual purposes, ridiculous. I'm not about it. Anything that elevates all of humankind to a higher plane of greater meaning, greater value, greater purpose, I am for that. Like, we are all invaluable. We are all precious. And treating each other like we're not, I'm not okay with that. Hence, one of the reasons why I'm still a virgin. So, in closing, yes, I am still a virgin, and I am not ashamed of it. Not one bit. And I'm quite contented and happy. Feels really, really good. Feels good to be me. This is not at all intended to be me throwing any shame on people whose choices are different than mine. Everybody's journey, totally different. But I do want to offer a kind word from, unwanted. I mentioned it before. Oh, is that backwards? It's totally backwards. It says unwanted. Trust me. As we journey through life, we inevitably undergo formative experiences of disconnection from those who were most intended to bring us into wholeness. Cruelty, abandonment, and divorce divide us from our parents. Bullying, abuse, and humiliation divide us from our peers. It is in the aftermath of these stories that we live as exiles east of Eden. We wander about in search of home, but settle for a narcissistic identity reflected back to us from the amount of sex, power, and money we are able to obtain. Sexual brokenness is not a life sentence. It is an invitation to heal our wounds and learn who we want to become. And I believe in redemption. Your history, your past, does not have to be your future. If you want to change, you can change it. If you previously have done things that you regret, let them go. Move forward, because your future is too good and your present is too good to stay living in the past. Just let it go. Thanks for sticking around for a deep one. This is Dara, over and out.